Okay, welcome back. We are at the point at which we're ready to start making the uprights for our rail here. So that it's not just floating in midair because that can't happen in reality. We got to support it with something. So we're going to make the uprights for this. Now, there's going to be a number of them and they're identical. So we don't want to spend a lot of time drawing lots of these shapes to extrude. What we want to do is once we've made one is find ways of copying it. Now, we could do that by using the assembly. So we could draw one part and then we could use the assembly to position them. That would work absolutely fine. The assembly drawing is next to, if you'll see at the bottom of the screen now, I pointed it out, it's next to your part studio and you can just insert items that you have open. So we can literally pop in some of the items that we've made, and we can start lining them up and shaping them and putting them wherever. And it means that you can make objects and then assemble them afterwards. So let's just close that. I'm not going to worry about it now. Let me just insert one of them actually, and I'll show you how to move it around. So once you've placed it, you click yes, I'm happy with that. And then you can select that object and you can move so that you can get it set up the way you want it to be set up. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to draw it all in the part studio because it's not that complex what we're doing. So we will use the part studio and we're going to use copying parts as a way of doing it. And again, there's lots of ways to do that. So we'll explore some of the options along the way. So here I've got a base plane that I could use, just like I did before. I can go to new sketch, but instead of doing that, I want to make it so that I can start drawing at this level here. Now, the easiest way to do that from this position, if I go to the left view, you can see it's too low. I want to start drawing from this bed here, from this level here. So I'm going to go to this one here, which makes a new plane. And I can choose how far I offset that plane. So I'm going to make it so that the arrow is just on the right level with this line here. And I'm going to click tick. Now what that's done is it's made a new plane for me, which is higher up. And I can select it there, or I can select it here. And then I can start making a new sketch, just as I have done previously. And then I can start drawing. So I go to my top view and using the roll ball to zoom in, making sure my mouse is in the location where I want to start drawing, because this is quite small now. And I'm going to use this different drawing tool here to make kind of a hexagon shape. It's slightly in the wrong place, so I'm just going to press Control Z and do that again. I'm just left clicking and dragging out to make this shape. And I want it to be smaller than the bar that I'm going to have there. So I'm happy with that shape and I click tick. Now it could be quite awkward to try and grab that. You can see it's right down here. It's tiny. It's quite difficult to get hold of. So to extrude it, I'm going to use the selection tool over here to click, left click and select that. And then I can extrude this shape just as I have done with others. So it goes up here. Now I do want to make sure it's a new part that it's making and it's not trying to add it to one of the previous parts that I've got. So make sure it's a new solid. And then in terms of the distance, it should be about 0.5 meters there. So half a meter, it should be about right. And then I can click, yes, I'm happy with that extrusion. So that's the first bit done. I've made my first one. I could repeat that process for all the others, but actually I think there's an easier way if we have the right tools to use. Now I could make multiple copies or duplicates using one of these. So a curve, a linear pattern, anything along those lines. I'm not going to make too many supports with mine, so I'm not going to do it this way. But you can see that if I get a linear pattern, I'll just do it for a second so you can see, and then you can choose if you want to use it. I'm going to select the object, and then I'm going to select a direction for it. So the direction that I want to select, now it can't do curves, so it won't manage to do this. It will think it's the face that it wants to duplicate. So if I increase that so you can see the distance on there. So let's get rid of that 0, and you can see that actually it's going parallel to the face rather than actually what we wanted it to be. Excuse me. So that's not going to work for me this time. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to close that off. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come over to this part menu and I can actually right click and I can copy it. And if I copy a part, it actually gives me some options. So straight away it says, do you want to translate it? So I could just move it with this copy of it, or I could translate it by line, distance, And I've got all these other options. I could copy and paste scale. So I'm going to try translate by line. And if I select this item here, it's going to pop it up to the end where that joint is, which is actually quite nice for me. So I actually quite like that object. So I've got part 4 is being copied over to halfway up. There it is. So I've now got 2 items. So with those 2 items, part 4 and part 5, I can actually use the mirror tool. So the mirror tool here, let's go back to here. And this time it's looking for the plane that I want to use as a mirror, which is this one halfway over. And you can see it's popped those in place straight away for me. Well, that was super easy. So there I go. I've got the whole of this side done. And guess what? I can do that again. So now I've got parts 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's make sure I've got them selected. And again, I can mirror them, and mirroring them to the other side. Now remember, this only works because I drew everything on that central area. So it's getting quite difficult to select that central one. So if I pick the right one here, hopefully, oh, I've got to select mirror plane, that's why. So if I pick the right one there, you can see it duplicates over. And because I used the center of my drawing, all of these tools are working nicely for me. If you've drawn it off to one side or to an edge, you'll have to do it another way and it will take you slightly longer. But you can see that's looking pretty decent now. All of my parts are drawn. So that leaves me with just one thing that I want to do, and I'll do it in the next video. We're going to add some materials to this with some colors on it, and then we can make a 2D drawing, and we can even save this to 3D print it. So we'll have a quick look at how we do those items in a minute or two.